Hello class and welcome back. In our last video in this lesson you saw the basics of the Adobe Illustrator interface, and in this video we're going to be exploring a little bit about Photoshop, kind of the same setups, what's the same about Illustrator as with Photoshop, what's different, and any other need to knows. Now, like I've stated before, both on the Moodle page and in our videos, you do not need to download Photoshop at this time. I'm going to repeat that again. Do not download Photoshop at this time. Simply read through your chapter and go through these videos, and this will give you everything you need to know for your first quiz on the Adobe interface. Again, if you have any questions about this, feel free to reach out to me at pferris@mc.edu or through Moodle Quick Mail. So to get started, again, this is my PC environment. I'm going to go and open Photoshop. Now to do that, I can go to my Start menu, All Programs, and you can see I have Photoshop CC 2015 right here in the same area that Illustrator was. So we're going to open this up. We're going to let our welcome panel load in, and depending on the speed of your computer, it should already be up. Now, right off the bat, you're going to notice we get this welcome screen again. Again, make sure to pay attention to this 30 days left in your trial once we finally do get to the Photoshop module in this class. I'll X that out for now. You can see just at the surface level, it looks very similar to Illustrator. We still have our top menu bar, we kind of have our dock area, although unlike Illustrator, this already has some items in here. You can see we have our tools palette, and over here you can see we have our other palettes and other toolbars for color, swatches, libraries, layers, actions, so on and so forth. Right off the bat, one of the first things you'll notice that is different is that our dock already has items in here. Unlike Illustrator, Photoshop does not set defaults for your actions or for your tools. Whereas in Illustrator, if I didn't have a selection created, I could go in here and say that I want all strokes to be 2 points from that point on. It would do it. Photoshop does not make any assumptions. Again, if your interface does not look like the one that you have in front of you once you load up Photoshop, it's real simple. Just go to Window, Workspace, Reset Essentials. And again, in this course, we're going to be working out of the Essentials workspace most of the time. There may be other times where I ask you to move to photography or typography, depending on the needs of that particular project. But for the most part, stay in Essentials. You'll have everything you need. You'll also notice that unlike Illustrator, we already have our color and swatches panels predefined and have a lot more options that are offered in Illustrator. Part of this reason is because, unlike Illustrator, Photoshop is what's called a raster-based program. A raster-based program is any imaging program that helps you create graphics or modify images that are represented in pixels. Pixels being the smallest unit of measurement when looking at digital imaging files. Now, Illustrator is a vector format software, which means that it's mainly used to create scalable formats that do not depend on specific units of measurements like pixels. Instead, I can take a logo that I create in Illustrator and make it 1 inch wide, or I can make it 1,000 inches wide and would not lose any resolution. That is not the case in Photoshop, where if I tried to take a 1 inch photo in Photoshop and blow it up to even an 8 by 10, I would suffer a lot of image data loss, and I would end up with a very blurry and unusable photo. Over here, you'll also notice that our tools palette is a bit smaller. There are less tools in Photoshop, but there tend to be more filters and effects and things that you'll use in this panel, especially here with the Layers, Channels, and Paths panel. But real quickly, we have our Selection tool, which allows you to select elements. We have our Marquee tool, which allows you to create selections on specific objects and move those around. We have our our Lasso tool, which allows us to do essentially the same thing as the Marquee tool, except I can work in odd shapes or irregular shapes instead of having to stick to squares, circles, or lines. We have our Quick Selection tool, Magic Wand tool, which we'll use to easily separate things out from backgrounds later in the course. Crop tools, eyedropper tools to help select color, healing tools, how to heal spots, blemishes, and other scratches that may be on your photo, your paintbrush tool, which is exactly what you think it does. It allows you to put color or something down on a page. Stamp tool, which allows you to clone a specific area and move it back. Our history brush tool, which allows you to go back in time in your file and apply new settings based on old brushes. The eraser tool, gradient tools, blur and sharpen tools, dodge and burn tools, which dodge makes things lighter, burn makes things darker. Pen tool, type tool, direct selection tool, shape tool, basically your move tool, which allows you to move around the canvas when we have one, and your zoom tools. And that's essentially it. It's very rare that you'll ever work outside of any of those tools inside of Photoshop, and they each have their own distinct purpose, which we'll be going through in this course. On the right, you can see we have things like color, swatches, libraries, adjustments, which is things like contrast, or levels, how much dark and light there are in a photograph. Let's see, what else do we have over here? We have hue and saturation, so I can change the tint from maybe a yellow tinted item to an orange tint, or from a blue tint to a green tint. Saturation, how intense the colors are in the photo. And again, all of these are used to make adjustments to whatever photo you have over here. And underneath that, probably one of the most important panels, so be very, make sure this is always in your Photoshop files, is your layers palette. Remember, inside of Illustrator, we worked in what are called artboards. Artboards are essentially pages inside a document that allow you to have separate areas for your illustrations. In Photoshop, everything is built primarily on the same canvas. Now I'm going to come here, I'm going to create a basic 5 by 7 photograph size. So you'll see we have that here. Essentially, in Photoshop, everything that you create will be in this layers panel. So for example, if I come over here and create a shape, you can see I've created a new shape in my layers panel. If I come in here and create another one, and we'll make this one green or blue so you can see the difference. You can see I have another rectangle. I can come into my layers panel, rearrange those, and now my black rectangle is in front of my blue one. Again, this allows us to work with these items in layers, and allows you to isolate certain parts of your project without having artboards. Now there is a new artboard tool inside of Photoshop that was released in this latest iteration of Creative Cloud. We will not be going into it at this point in the course, but when it comes up later on in the semester, I will definitely point that out and show you how to use that. Some other important ones that you might want to see are your history panels. What this essentially allows me to do is go back, I believe it's up to maybe 15 or 20 steps in history. So you can see I can go back to where I set the shape, rectangle tool. I'm going to go here to new and just double click that, and you can see that I went back to blank. Whereas now I can come in here and get back to layer order, set shape. I can click on these individually and go back in time, essentially. And when I set my brush over here, this is what my history brush will do. It'll set the source for my brush. It'll allow me to erase certain parts or work on certain parts or add certain parts based on the history. So again, I'm going to bring all those back. Let's see, there we go, layer order. Everything else is pretty much straightforward. Over here, you can see this is your arrangement, so you can bring shape to front, bring shape forward, bring shape back, or extend it all the way to the back. Once I have something selected using my selection tools, I can come in here, make sure both these layers are selected, and then you can see I can come in here and align them in certain ways. So I'm going to center them vertically and center them horizontally. You can also use this to change if I want to select groups or layers. So now I can go in here and I've got just a single layer selected. Oh, I need to, if I toggle auto select though, you can see instead of having to click over here into panels, I can just click over here and move this around. So I'm just going to click this one and move it, and click this one and move it. Also, a very important thing is just make sure you toggle transform controls. Make sure that's checked. That way you can see all your little handles and you can view how everything's being affected. And for as far as Photoshop goes, that's pretty much it for the basic tools. We also have something unique to Photoshop called filters. While there are filters in Illustrator, they don't work quite in the same way. But here, I can come example to Gaussian blur and blur gallery. I can rasterize the shape, and I can blur the edges. So I'm left with a feathered out version of the shape. Now I can come back in here and manipulate it in whatever way I want. but now it has that effect applied. Other kind of unique things are working with 3D tools. We will not be working with the 3D tools in this class. They can be really processor intensive, and they're really more for advanced students, but I do want to bring your attention to them in case you want to learn about those on your own. Some other items just from an interface standpoint. You have your edit menus, which allow you to go forward, back, checks things like spelling, find and replace text, do warps, or freeform changes. So I can do a puppet warp right here. And you see, once I have that puppet warp, I can come down here and drop a few pins. And once I've done that, I can go here. Oh, we don't want to apply that yet. And anyway, you'll be able to manipulate the different items that you have. So again, to show that, we'll go to puppet warp. I can set a pin, another pin, and then I can stretch these vertices. And when you're working with an organic shape, or something that doesn't have a straight color field on it, it may be a little bit more impactful than what you see me doing here. But you can see I'm able to basically come in here, drop a pin on a vertice, and then move it around. And again, this will allow you to create some pretty unique effects when working in 3D space and such. For us, since we just have a flat shape, it doesn't really manipulate it too much, but you get the idea. Other than that, just one last helpful hint for Photoshop is do make sure that you save and save often. I can't reiterate this enough. On a PC, it's Control S. On a Mac, it's Command S. Save often. Anytime you see this asterisk up here and you're about to step away from a second, save it again. I can't tell you how many times personally and professionally that I've been working on a file, forgotten to save, come back, and something's gone on. So definitely don't want that to happen to any of y'all. So just make sure to save either by going to File Save or Command or Control S. So quick recap. Same Tools panel on our left, same Attribute panels on our right. Dock up here where we can change Essentials or any of our other ones, and then our menu bar up top. And this is what we call the application frame in the background here. So when I say this, I do not want to say that. Again, this should get you, along with your text, as on all the things you need to know about the Photoshop interface. If you have any questions or have any concerns when going through your first quiz, please reach out to me. Again, pferris@mc.edu, or going through Moodle and QuickMail. Thank y'all, and look forward to seeing some great work. And in our next video, we'll go through our last interface item, which is Adobe InDesign.